This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, yeah. Good evening, everyone. I'll just go ahead to share my screen, then from then we'll just get started. All right. Can anyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Hi, Wamaka. Can you confirm that my screen is showing?
Yes, I can. I can see your screen. Can you hear me,
Hello.
Kristen? Hello, Kristen.
Yeah.
I
Sure.
can.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Once again, we'll be discussing briefly tonight on user experience interview preparation. So before then, I'll just give a little background about myself and what I do. Like most of you must have known, my name is Egu Chibuzo Christian. Preferably Chibuzo Christian, or you just call me Christian. I'm a product designer, and I've been in this space for like getting to 3 years now, and I've been privileged to work across a couple of companies, ranging from fintech and a whole lot of them. And I have worked a lot of projects cutting across fintech, SaaS, Web3, and a whole lot of them there. But lately, I've been freelancing, and that's what I've been doing lately. I've been freelancing and taking on projects from organizations, from startups, and all that. So, regarding to this topic, I must say that I'll be speaking tonight from the wealth of my experience, what I've seen from the industry, what's going on, how it's being done, and I will share my own personal opinion and what is obtainable in the industry. So I will try to make the class as maybe interactive and quick as possible so that we can be able to ask questions maybe towards the end. Then if there are questions also, I will also like for someone to call my attention. Maybe I can pause for a while, then take on questions while we move on. But if there is none, then we can still do that at the end, like Wamaka said. So yeah, having said that, I'll moving on to the next slide. So in tonight's section, we'll be looking at this is actually going to be our area of concentration. We'll be looking at introduction. What exactly is a user experience interviews? What does it mean? Okay, how to ask users questions. So how do we ask the right questions during interviews? How do we go about making sure that we ask the right questions? Then how do we prepare for user research? What are the methodologies and the frameworks in user research? Then questionnaire templates. How do we collate and interpret research data? And then finally, we'll be looking at remote versus physical user interview. So I will be just be hitting this one by one, then we'll be discussing that briefly. Like I said, if you have your questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section, then I'll be taking that. All right. So what is user interviews? What is user interviews? That's the first thing. So we should be able to understand the context of what we are doing. What's user interviews? Okay, I trust that before now, most of us must have gotten a glimpse of UI UX who have must have done some of the stages, the colors, how to come up with wireframes, how to do user flows, and the whole lot of them and all that. So, but tonight, the major area of concentration is user interviews. So, user interviews are US research methods where a researcher asks existing or potential users questions to gain an understanding of their preferences, thoughts, and feelings. So, in to explain this better, so as a UI UX designer or as a UX researcher, so user interviews are an opportunity for you to get to meet your users, potential users, or existing users. So that's an opportunity for you to meet them. Then you ask them questions. You want to know their perception concerning maybe or their thoughts concerning the project you are building or the one you want to build. Okay, so this can happen maybe before you build your project or while you are building your project. All right. So then the researcher in this concept is expected to take records of what the answers that is being gotten from the user. So this can be you can take notes. Maybe you have a book and paper. You write down the answers you are getting from your users. You can also record. You can use tape. You can make use of your phone, whatever device that works well for you to actually collect some of this data from the users. You can do that. Then if need be, you can take pictures too. So that's just basically an overview of what user interviews are. Then how do we prepare for user interviews or for user research? Remember I said user interviews is a US research method, so it's still under US research. So how do we do that? How do you prepare? You don't just wake up and say, okay, I want to go and meet my potential users, and you just move on without trying to get yourself prepared on how to go about it. So it is very important that we prepare ahead of time so that we'll make sure we get the best of data or the necessary information we need for our projects or the project you are working on. The first thing we need to do while preparing for this is to define your research objectives. So what exactly do you want to learn from your users? What do you want to take away from what do you have in mind? Why do you even want to start these user interviews? So you should have that purpose in your mind. Okay, I'm going to meet my users. Let's take for instance, so you should have an objective. Okay, I'm going to meet my users because I'm working on a project, and I want to know their thoughts depending on the project. Maybe for instance, you are working on an e-commerce mobile app, for instance. So okay, so you want to understand how users, what's the idea or their thoughts or their preferences when it comes to buying and shopping online and all that. So you should have that objectives set aside in your mind, and possibly you can write that down if possible. Then you want to decide who you want to interview. So who actually are your targeted users? All right, so every product, every project that is being worked on, okay, have set of persons that are being called the targeted users. So for instance, for the e-commerce platform, so you are looking at people that buy things online. So you want to have their idea on how they do the buying things online. How do people, even if they don't buy things online, how do people out there buying things online? Okay, for instance, okay, let's take another view. For instance, okay, maybe you are doing an app for pregnant women. So how pregnant women should okay, helping pregnant women to buy things. So you know that your targeted audience are pregnant women, or you are building a sports app, so you know that your targeted audience are people that are into sports. So stuffs like that. So you should be able to know the people you are about, so you don't just go and approach any kind of person. So this is right, so that you don't go and get the wrong information. And remember, the kind of information you get influence your decisions, and at the end of the day will affect the kind of product you are building. So you have to make sure that you reach out to the right set of persons. Then design an interview guide. So like I said earlier on, so you should be able to know what you want to achieve. Then interview guide is, for instance, I'll just break that down a little. You should be able to know, okay, when it's time for an interview, how do you go about it? Okay, what are the questions? How do I start? What are the questions I need to ask first? What are the questions I need to ask in between the interview? What are the questions I need to ask at the end, and all that? So there should be a guide on how you want to ask your questions. So um you should be able to write down some of these questions down. That's very important, so that you don't mix things up and ask the wrong questions. Then just a little something to guide you. You pen them down so that you can get the right information from your right data from your users. Then obviously you conduct the interview. So in conducting the interview, you ask them questions regarding what you are building or your product and all that. Then summarize your learning and gather your feedback. So we'll still be hitting on some of those points along the line. So this is more like how to prepare. So the major thing there to take away from this slide is before you go out for user interviews, you have to prepare. It's very important. You have to prepare. You have to prepare. All right. Then I'll just quickly move to the next slide. How do we ask questions? So now that you are prepared, how do you now go about asking your questions? Okay, so the first point I have here, I have to put this first point on purpose because I still wanted it to ring on our mind. So you start by defining the broader themes. The first step in this process is to decide what exactly you want to learn from this interview. So this is a repetition of what I talked earlier. So I put that there here to just reiterate, like to make sure that we are still in line. So even though you're about to ask your question, so you still have to know that the purpose of this interview is to achieve so and so. So that should be in your head while you ask your questions. So how do you ask the right questions? Because the main thing is in asking the right questions. Okay, if you ask the wrong questions, you get the wrong data. If you ask the right questions, you go home with the right data. So, and remember, this influence your decisions, and at the end of the day, we boil down to the kind of design you will be coming up with. Okay. Customer introduction. Then, with regards to that, before your interview or during your interview, you have to make sure that you make your users comfortable. So let's take for instance, you are reaching out to a set of persons, or you are taking them one by one. Maybe you are reaching out to people one by one, for instance, because there are cases that you can also reach out to a group of persons. So let's take for instance, you are reaching out to these users one by one. That's a one-on-one section. So you have to make sure that your user is comfortable. You have to make sure that he's not the maybe the environment is conducive for what you're about to do, so that the user does not get distracted. If you have money, you can maybe buy something for the user, can get the user a coffee or a bottle of coke, as the case may be, just to make the person comfortable. Then you can now go on to ask your question. So you start by introductory question like for instance, can you tell me about yourself? What's your name? What do you do? What's your typical day like? So these are introductory questions. You you ask these things to make sure that your users are at ease. And just to start off, you want to know them, you want to know what they do and all that. So okay, so these are very important. You ask these questions at the beginning. So I feel this, some of these questions makes your users to actually feel more comfortable. Then down the list, break down your questions to make them answerable. So while you are asking your questions, remember we are talking about asking the right question. While you're asking your questions, you would want to make sure that you don't ask all the questions at the same time. So you don't just get to meet your users and you are bombarding them with questions at the same time. So you make them breakable. You break your questions down, ask them bit by bit. Okay. Okay, you take them one after the other so that you can be able to allow them to answer comfortably. Then when they are done answering the first one, you can give them the second questions, and by so doing they will feel more ease and more free to give their answers. Okay. Then don't ask questions that will influence the answer. So while you're asking your questions, you wouldn't want to ask questions that will make your will bias your actually your question or your the answer the user will be coming up with. So you make sure that you don't ask questions that will influence the answers that will be coming from your users. Okay, so your question should be open-minded, like we'll see in the next section. Your question shouldn't influence your users' answers. Okay, for instance, some of the questions that can influence a user's answer, maybe you cannot ask for a good example is this screen bad, or is this design bad, or is this product bad? So you're already trying to tell the user that there is a tendency of bad. It's not a bad questions, but remember, one of the things with the user interviews is that you want to actually know how their thought process, you want to know what they are thinking, you want to know how they feel, you want to know why, maybe why they don't like the product or why they would. So you just want to know, you want to get real information from them without being biased, like unbiased information, data from them. Is not an information, your data from them. So you want to get these things real and the way they think about it, without being biased, without feeling anyhow. So these are the things you have to put in mind. Then ask specific about specific examples. Okay, for instance, I was given an example of an e-commerce platform. So you can ask, for instance, can you give me an example of how you do shopping on a normal? How do you go about buying your gadgets? How do you go about buying your stuffs on the internet? If not in the internet, how do you go about buying them remotely on in your places and all that? So you want to understand how they do that. So you ask specific questions, and yeah, of course, they have to be open-minded questions. Okay, is open-minded questions are questions you can are questions that someone cannot answer with yes or no. So, like for instance, the question I said, how do you go about buying your gadgets? Okay, how do you go about buying your gadgets? So it's not left for the user to tell you how he or she goes about. You can tell you, okay, I buy my gadgets on Jumia, I buy my gadgets from nearby shops, I do this, I buy them from a friend or someone helps me to get this. So it will help you to gather all the necessary facts together. It should be open-ended so that they can say it the way they want and the way they go about doing it. Then topic specific questions. Like I said, the question should be specific. Please, if there are questions, feel free to drop them on the chat. Then I trust the moderator will call my attention. Then I can pause a while and answer these questions. All right. So continuing on this. So I had to list some user interview question examples so to help us. A very good example is what you can see on the screen. Please tell me about yourself. I think I've mentioned this earlier on. So I just had to. I think I came up with a couple of questions to actually help us to go about our interviews. There are a whole lot of questions on the internet. You can just browse user interview questions. Example, you can see a whole lot of them, but these are just few that came to my mind. And I had to put them down to help us. Then please tell me about yourself. So I said this earlier on. This should help. This should come at the beginning of your interview. What are you thinking? What are you thinking as you look at this? So this is an open-ended question. So for instance, you have come up with a design, maybe let's say a wireframe of a product, and you want to test them with your users. So you can, while you are showing them on the screen, you are asking them what are they thinking as they look at this. So you want to know what they think. What is the first thing that comes to their mind when they look at the design? What are they thinking? What's on their mind as they look at the design you are showing them? So that's a very important question to ask. What is your first impression of this product or feature? So it's like the second question. So you want to know what's their impression or are on with regards to the product or the particular feature you are trying to build. So remember this kind of questions are coming when you already have a design to show them. Okay, okay, this is not the one that comes maybe there are ones that you have to do maybe before the project even starts. Okay, I think we call that exploratory uh, um, research. So, but we'll still have to come to that maybe with time. Then, so these are some user interview question examples that I just listed. Then I'll just run through them. You started to shake your head when I showed you the interface. What caused this reaction? So, this is more like a follow-up question. Okay, maybe earlier on, let me just go back a little bit. What's your first impression of this product or feature? So they will tell you. Then maybe why they were looking at that, they were shaking their head. So you ask a follow-up question now. So I discover you were shaking your head. What was the reason and all that? So that is to actually you want to follow up with regards to the first question to get their exact reason of acting the way they acted. Okay, maybe the interface was bad, maybe something was wrong, maybe they saw something they didn't like, maybe one or two things didn't go well with the design and all that. So you want to figure that out while asking these questions. Okay, another very good question is what was the easiest task to accomplish? So maybe at this point, for instance, you are test running a project you are building, like I said. So you are asking them, okay, what was your easiest task? Okay, so you are trying to ask them, okay, what did they really find easiest navigating through this project? Maybe it's an app, the e-commerce app I was talking about earlier on. So you want to understand, okay, what was the easiest task? Okay, is it ability to add items to the cart? Is it ability to easily make purchase? Is it ability to easily make payments? Okay, what was the easiest task to accomplish? So they should be able to tell you that. So these are open-minded questions that you can actually copy and ask your users during interviews. So what was the hardest task to accomplish? So um, this is just a related question to the last one I asked. So you want to know the easiest, you want to know the hardest task. So this is for them to tell you, okay, the essence of this is for them to tell you their easiest task is they actually like this because it is the payment is fast, the mobile app is fast, the payment section is fast. They don't have to go through a whole lot of processes to really get to the point of paying. They can easily save their card details on the mobile to do all that. Then how do you currently deal with this issue? So that's another question. Explain the last time you dealt with this issue. So more like it. So do you feel this design was made for you and why not and all that? Would you recommend this to a family member or a friend? So this last question is very good to ask at towards the end of your interview because it will actually help to tell you how your users actually feel about this product. If they can recommend it to a friend or a family member, then you did a great job. But if they feel it's not worth recommending, then you should find reasons why. Okay, maybe you did not really do a good job and all that. So these are some examples. Like I said earlier on, there are a whole lot of questions on the internet to guide you. You mustn't copy all, but you can use them as a guide to ask the right questions. Then moving on to methodologies and frameworks in user research. So I don't know if there are questions. Please, Mamaka, you can call my attention. I can pause a little bit, then take questions before continuing. Are there questions?
Okay, yeah, there's a question here. It says, okay, if I ask an open-ended question and the response doesn't help propel further questions, do I end the interview? For example, I'm doing an interview for an e-commerce app, but my interviewee does not use an e-commerce platform.
Okay, yeah, you have okay. That's a very good. That's a very good question. Remember, the fact that you're building an e-commerce app does not mean your users have to be using one. Okay, you might meet people that are using one at the same time. You might meet people that are not even using any. Okay, before e-commerce platform came out, people were buying stuffs. So you need to know, how do they do this buying? How do they do this buying? Okay, like the question I asked, you are asking your user, for instance, how do you buy your gadgets? How do you buy your gadgets? It's not left for the user to tell you, I used Jumia, I used so and so app. I bought it from a store nearby. A friend of mine actually helped me to get this. So if the user you are asking this question does not use an e-commerce platform, you can ask them for how they do their buying aside from e-commerce. I don't know if I've answered that question. Hello.
Okay, we're here and we can hear you.
Okay. Any other question?
For now, no.
Okay. So I will just move on to methodologies and frameworks in user research. So mainly there are two methodology when it comes to user research, and there are quantitative user research and qualitative user research. And I'm sure we must have come across this maybe at one point or the other. So, but I'll just do just a little justice to that, explaining better and trying to make it a little bit easier for us to comprehend. Quantitative user research and qualitative user research. So quantitative user research, what's that all about? Okay, when quantitative, just like it sounds, quantity, like quantity, it has to do with numbers, it have to do with counting, it have to do with um logics and all that, mainly numbers, quantity, numbers, and all that. So quantitative user research has to do when you are collecting an information from your users. Remember, users can be existing or potential, like I said earlier on. And majorly they do this kind of information collection or data collection using online surveys, maybe online polls and questionnaires. A very good example of this is some of the things we see on Twitter, right? Yeah, some of these Twitter posts, I don't know, we must have seen that, or LinkedIn posts. They not people normally do that. For instance, you can ask then I need to say this before I go on. When it comes to quantitative user research, uh, close-ended questions are also are being asked. Close-ended questions are being asked. You can ask how many persons buy their gadgets from Jumia, for instance. Okay, how many persons, or do you buy your gadgets from Jumia? Yes or no? Something like that. I'm sure we must have seen that. Something that has A or B, yes or no, or others, something like that. Then people will say yes. Anybody that clicks yes, you know that okay, this person buys gadgets from Jumia. Anybody that clicks no tells you that this person does not buy gadgets from Jumia. So you are trying to know the so at the end of the day, okay, when you be getting the results of this survey, you'll be having numbers. So these figures will help you to say, okay, um for instance, 30 to 50% of people buy their gadgets using Jumia or using uh, online platforms, depending on the nature of questions you are putting out there. So this gives you figures. Okay, 30 to 50 Nigerians are leaving this country. But one thing with quantitative analysis, it does not answer the question why. Okay, why are people buying from Jumia? Why are people leaving the country? Okay, it only gives you numbers. Okay, these numbers are important because it will trigger something in you to ask more further questions, and that is where the qualitative user research actually comes in. So if there is one thing you need to take away from this, is you have to know that quantitative user research has to do with merely numbers, and you can gather some of this using surveys, online polls, and the questionnaires. So uh, in Oneo questionnaires, it still have the same pattern. Do you like these products? How do you see the interface of these products and all that? Most times they have these yes or no clickable options. That's how to know them. Yes or no, yes or no, yes or no clickable options. Then maybe few of them will give you options to express yourselves. So that is with regards to quantitative user research. Then with qualitative user research, like I said earlier on, this answers the question why. Like for instance, I said 37% of people like buying their gadgets online. Okay, so it does not answer the question why do 37% people of people or 87% of people buy their stuffs online. It doesn't give you that why answer. It doesn't give you the thoughts behind their buying things online. It doesn't give you their preferences and all that. So that is where this comes in. So this is actually designed to review the behavior and perception of this targeted audience. Okay, and you gather this kind of information or data via interviews, like user interview. So the user interview you are treating now is a very good example of qualitative user research. Focus group. So focus group is like a group of persons. Okay, you are reaching out to a group of persons, a group of for taking for instance if a group of persons which regarding to the products you are building. Maybe you are building a sports app, so you are reaching out to people that are into sports, footballers and all that. So you gather this set of persons that are your targeted audience, right? Or potential users. So and all that. Then there are content analysis, case studies, research, and all that and all that. So but then with regards to questionnaire templates, so when it comes to quantitative user analysis, like I said earlier on, so you always often make use of questionnaires or online polls. Some people find it very difficult when they talk about when they want to carry on with their research. Most people use online surveys. That that is a very good example. If we are on Twitter or maybe on LinkedIn, you must have seen a lot of person, even on WhatsApp. In some groups, someone will say, oh, please, hi, please, can you help me fill out this survey? I'm carrying out a research on so and so projects and all that. It will take less than 10 minutes to fill and all. So those are questionnaires, those are surveys. They just want you to um, answer those questions to help them figure out and gather data to make decisions while they build the products they are working on. So with regards to questionnaire templates, so there are a whole lot of them. You can just google them, questionnaire templates. You just have a very good ones that can guide you to prepare one. Then there are platforms like a Typeform. You can actually use this to prepare uh, your questionnaire. You can use a Google form and a whole lot of them. So there are tools out there that have made these things very simple for us to come up with. So the main thing is put down your questions down. Then when you go online, you can use something like Typeform and quickly type them and then organize them and start sending out to people to fill. Then another good example, when like I said during the quantitative analysis, is using LinkedIn or Twitter posts, online posts. These ones are easy, okay, because I've come to discover that people really find it difficult filling online surveys or questionnaires. They find it very, very difficult, okay, except maybe you are paying them for that, so people feel like they don't really have that time, except there are people that are close to you and all that. So but people actually help out to do this. But what I'm saying is a very quick way to go about it is using online polls. I think just that it takes time. US research as a whole takes time to do. So using Twitter, for instance, using online polls, for instance, you can be able to ask your questions. Maybe you can ask one question per day. Okay, you can come up with one question per day. Just write, okay, um, like we all see, like the example I gave last. How do you buy your gadgets using online platforms, or uh, you buy from shops and all that? So people will be able to choose options, yes or no, A or B, I do this, I do that. So you give just limited options for them to answer these questions, and you gather your data. So with regards to templates, so there are a whole lot of them out there, but the main thing is putting down your questions. So we'll quickly go to collecting and interpreting of research data. So before then, are there more questions with regards to what I've said so far, Amaka?
Okay, I can't see any because there was a break in my network. So Emanuela, please help me out.
Okay, there's no question so far, apart from the one you answered on the chat.
Okay. All right. So I'll just move on. Collecting and interpretation of research data. So when it comes to user interviews or user research as a whole, uh, especially when it comes to quantitative user research, like I said, it has to do with numbers. So those ones are sometimes maybe a little bit easier, because at the end of the day, your pools will give you results. Okay, directly. 37%, for instance, are doing this. 200 and something percent likes this and all that. They will give you numbers, and you can use those numbers maybe and form tables. You can use those numbers and form a chart. You can use those numbers and come up with a better representation that gives you the context of what you are looking for. But when it comes to interviews, remember, interviews, people are pouring out their mind for you. People are telling you how they feel about the products you are building. People are telling you how they feel, their thoughts with regards to the area you are asking them questions on. So and people will be giving you different kind of answers. Okay, people might have different kinds of views when it comes to what you are working on. So they can come with different kind of things. So it is always not very easy to put these data together and come up with a good decision at the end of the day. Okay, so when it comes to collecting and interpreting of these data, is really not easy. So but there is a process that have made this easier for us to carry out, and one of them is thematic analysis. So what thematic analysis does is that it helps us to identify patterns of themes in the interview data. So what does it mean to identify patterns of themes? It just helps you to gather information that are related to each other, put them together one by one. Then at the end of the day, you'll be able to, okay, form something tangible out of those little bits of data you have gotten. So I'll be explaining for that. Then again, lest I forget, there are also softwares that have been made available out there, that have been built to actually help us carry out this. When I was talking about qualitative analysis, user research or interviews, uh, I made mention of writing down notes. Okay, you can take down notes of the questions or the answers that your users are giving you. You can record them with you can get a tape and record them, so you can do video. If you can take pictures and all that. So these are the data you get during interviews. So most times they are audios, most times they are write-ups. You are writing them down, you are writing them the answers down. So there are softwares you can also use to do this, and I've listed them here: Dovetail, Enjoy HQ. uh One of the most popular is What's the name again? Uh, so there are a whole lot of them, like this ones here, Delve, Nivivo, and Atlas too also helps in collecting of this data. So what this platform does is that as your users are talking, you are just taking the notes on these softwares. You are taking your notes. Okay, this is what this person is saying. You are typing as they are talking, right? Then after you are done that, the software will help you to put these things together and give you a better report. So I will just go through it in few steps. So we have like 6 steps when it comes to thematic analysis. So the first thing is you have to familiarize yourself with the data. Okay, listen to the recording and transcribe them or take lots of notes. So I think I've said this earlier on. So when you are done interviewing a user, okay, if you have an audio, the first thing you have to do is to transcribe them. Okay, transcribing them means you are converting the audio to written speech or to write-ups. So you are transcribing them. Then if you didn't record, you can, okay, you already have your notes, then you familiarize yourself with the answers. You just scan through, read through, familiarizing yourself to different answers that these users are coming up with. Okay, so that's just what you do. Then if you took pictures, maybe you can just label them. So you label them. Okay, this picture of when a user was using this product, you label them. When the user was clicking the send button, when the user was trying to understand so and so on the design and all that. So you familiarize yourself with this, the data you have collected. Then the next thing you do is to generate initial codes, or sometimes they say you code your data. You code your data. So what coding of that actually means is let's take for instance, you made notes. You did a whole lot of, you wrote down a whole lot of things while you were interviewing this user. So to code this data is as you're going through them. So as you're going through the answers you have on your notes, there might be some striking comments, okay, that you are noticing from different users perspective. Okay, maybe one the other user is saying uh I like buying my gadgets from Jumia. The other person is saying I like buying my gadgets from what are these platforms, this online platform, uh what are these gadgets platform, Konga and the whole lot of them. So there are a lot of platforms. So you are noticing, okay, Konga, you're noticing Jumia, you're noticing this and that. So you can be labeling this. You can label, for instance, Konga. You label, sorry, I mean when I mean label, I mean underline. For instance, you can underline Jumia, you can underline Konga. So these are codes. These are things that are striking comments that you are noticing. So you just underline them. Things that are becoming similar. Okay, you keep underlining, you keep underlining. So we will call this coding. Okay, you call this coding. So you see them as interesting comment or section of the recording that's actually, so you can label them on using your biro. Just label them on the notes you have made. Then the next thing is searching for themes. So search for patterns or themes in your code across different interviews. So what this means is, so you remember I was saying underlining some of these striking comments. So take for instance, like the e-commerce app we are actually building. From your interviews, users are telling you, the other person is saying I buy my gadgets from Jumia. The other person is saying I'm buying from Konga, right? So you underline Jumia, you underline Konga. So what does Jumia and Konga telling you? So you are gathering this, but these are patterns. Jumia and Konga are um online e-commerce platforms. So Jumia and Konga are the codes you underlined. Then these two things are telling you that your users are visiting e-commerce platform or electronic platform where to buy their to buy their gadgets. So you are making sense out of these codes. All right. So most times you have to go through this over and over again to make sure that you gather a whole lot of things that are rhyming together. So when you get this, so you make a point out of them. So that's what it means to search for themes. Themes are patterns or things that agree with each other, forming something meaningful. So while you are doing this, some might not actually fall in line, some might not. Okay, some might just be off. So you don't trash that. I don't in user interviews while you are doing that. You don't every information is important. So you value every information, because at the end of the day you might need to go back to them, or they might inspire something or raise more questions that will lead you to ask more questions or go back to your research. So some of them that might not really align, you keep them one side, then you move on, because there is a tendency you might be able to you come back to them. So you just keep them. So a very good tip is to write your codes on sticky notes to make it easier to move them around and get a better overview. So you must have seen, maybe if I've gone through people's case study on Behance, you must have seen a whole lot of sticky notes. So these are what they were actually trying to do. Okay, they were trying to they started by writing some of these codes, then they started trying to bringing them together, marrying them together to come up with to form patterns. Then the next step is to review these themes. So reviewing the themes, you just like you go over through them, refine them, read through all the interview extracts each team, and consider if there is a clear coherence inside each one of them and a clear difference between the teams. Then you combine them to find something too similar. So what this is trying to say is okay, you have you have underlined your codes, you have put them together to say, okay, my users, these are e-commerce platform. Okay, you have reviewed them. Okay, so you put them together, you put them together to try and form something. Okay, so that would be telling you, okay, most of my users are visiting this platform, most of my users are visiting this platform. Then after, then the next step you take is to define them, and you name these themes. So define them, though you look at each of your themes, define what the themes is all about, and give an appropriate name. So you can give it a better name. Okay, you can give it a better name. Maybe for instance, what you called Jumia and Konga was shopping platforms. Okay, so when you want to define them more now, you can call them an e-commerce platform. Or so you are adding more meaning to the little data you have gathered. So you are trying to put them together to form something meaningful. So you are defining them. So at the end of the day, you might not be saying, okay, um out of the 10 users of 20 users you have interviewed, 15 of them 15 of them prefer to buy things online than buying from local shops. Okay, maybe it's because it is easier for them to just stay on their home and navigate through their mobile phone and make these purchases. Okay, so these are the things you'll be noting down. Okay, easy access to it's easier for us, easy, okay, to buy them. It's maybe online platform is cheaper for them. Okay, less time consuming for them. So these are the things you just keep underlining and putting together to form and define your themes. Then when you must have defined it, then you can now come up with a better report. So what this report actually is like you have gathered your information together, you're coming up with a report that says, okay, this is your finding from your interview, from your research, from the data you have collected, from all you have analyzed so far. You are being able to say that most or majority of people prefer buying their gadgets online. Okay, so this is a better, so you produce your reports. If you use participant video, audio, photography, make sure you seek this consent first. So yeah, you split your reports up into two parts. So it's also a good a good idea to split this report into two parts. Okay, for instance, the first part should contain a summary of your finding in an engaging way. What's the summary of what you have gotten so far? Okay, like I said, the summary is that majority of users prefer buying their gadgets online than on via stores. Okay, that's more like a summary. Then part two should contain the background of your information about how you did your research and your findings. So this is a better way to do that. Okay, so when you have done this, so you should be able to say, okay, I will now go on with this project because I feel when I build an e-commerce app, my users will like it from your research. Okay, then okay, so before I move to remote or interview user research method, are there questions so far?
So hello. So far so good. There are no questions. So guys, if you have questions, please start to drop your questions so that Kristen can answer them. Thank you.
Okay, okay. So please ask your questions. Please ask your questions because when I'm done, I will still like to say one or two things because I'm already rambling on, but I would like to entertain questions before I say what I have to say. Then by then I'm already wrapping up because
I think there are some questions on the chat. If you can check.
okay, okay. Please, can I have them?
Okay. So the first question here is saying, hi Kristen, this is the same thing with affinity mapping, right? Where you use sticky notes like FigJam to map out and group similar and related responses in order to create a pattern, right?
Okay, it's something. Yeah, of course, is related to affinity mapping. Yeah, you create patterns. Yeah, that's true. That's correct. You but just in this case, but this is coming from an interview perspective. Yeah, affinity mapping can also be categorized under this because at the end of the day, what you are trying to do is that you are trying to put your data together to come up with a better report that will actually influence your decision making while you are building your product. So
Okay,
any
all
other
right.
question?
Yeah, there's another question here. It says, I don't know if this is related to today's class, but please can you talk a bit about system usability skill? Now, this is not related to today's class.
Okay.
Okay, so this is Chigozie. This question isn't related to today's class. So maybe that will be for another class.
All
So do
right.
we have
Any
more
other question?
questions, guys, before he continues and wraps up? So if you have any question, guys, please start dropping your questions so that when Christian is done, he can answer your questions and we can call it a night. Thank you so much. So Christian, you can proceed.
Okay, so I'm already wrapping up. My time is actually up. So remote interviews versus physical interviews. So when it comes to okay, I'll just give a very short story of my one of a client reached out to me and he wanted me to take on a project and he asked me, okay, he actually reached out from US. So he wanted me to take on a project. He liked my profile and all that. So, but while we are discussing, so he was not asking me what are my processes, how do I go about carrying out research and all that. So I was explaining to him. So he now said that where am I? He now asked a question, where am I? Then I now told him, okay, I'm in Nigeria. So he was like, oh wow, that his targeted audience are actually in the UX. So how do I intend to carry out this research from Nigeria and all that? So that's the end of my story. So what I'm trying to say is that in this scenario I just created now, so he's in the US, his audience majorly are in the US. I'm in Nigeria. How do I do this? So this is where remote interviews actually come in place. Okay, I can stay here in Nigeria and gather information from someone in the UX. But on the other way around, he was like, no, that he wanted it to be physical. He would he's the kind of person that like meeting his users and asking them questions one on one. That he prefer one on one sections and all that compared to remote interviews. So what am I saying in essence? So there are remote interviews or remote way of carrying out your user interviews. There is also a physical way of doing this. So the same way you meet people one on one and ask them questions regarding a product or a project you're about to build or you are building, is the same way you can still do this remote online. There are platforms out there that have actually made these things easier for us. For instance, I want to ask questions and maybe I've gotten someone from the US, maybe I've met the person on Twitter. I can quickly reach out to this person and say, please, hi, can I have maybe your 15 to 20 minutes? I have a few questions to ask regarding a product and all that. So you can make use of, we are making use of Zoom now. You can make use of Zoom, you can make use of Google Meet, and you ask your questions. Okay, while you're asking your questions, you can keep your notes on the side and pen this down, pen the answers he or she is giving you down. So there are other platforms too that also enables this, like some of the platforms I mentioned earlier on, Atlas, Nevido, and a whole lot of them. So this platform actually makes it easier for users. So most of them, all you have to do is to just type the, just as your users are answering your questions, you are typing, you are putting them down, and they will help you to do all this collecting of data, help you do the analysis and all that. It just make things very much easier for you to actually do. Then a very good example too is the online pool I talked about. For instance, the Twitter posts and the LinkedIn posts. Okay, this you are not doing this one-on-one. These are online. You are doing it remotely, and you are still gathering your feedbacks. So though there might not be interviews, but these are data you can collect from a distance. But with regards to interviews, you can do that. So some persons feel that remote interviews are better. Some persons feel that physical interviews are better. But that's not the question for today. It depends on what works for someone. But both of them are very, very possible and visible, and they both works fine. Okay. Um, Maybe some persons are the opinion that remote interviews helps your users to be comfortable. They are not distracted by the environment, and they are comfortable and they can sit from the comfort of their home or comfort of wherever they are and give you their answers. Okay, some persons say that when you have one-on-one interview, that users are being distracted maybe by the environment, they are in a rush and all that and all that. So there are a whole lot of questions with regards to remote and physical interviews, but both of them works fine. Both of them are cool. Both of them are great ways to ask questions and gather your data and analyze them and make your decisions. Right. So not really going to dwell much on this. Then I think that is actually all for now. My time is actually up. So I will be taking questions, then I'll give my final comments, then I'll hand over to the moderators. So are there questions?
All right, we have some questions here. So there's this question about what tips, what are your tips on reaching out to recruiters or hiring managers? That is not part of your class. I don't know if you have anything to say about that, Christian.
Okay, when it comes to reaching out to hiring managers, I think I'm an expert with that. Okay. Did I say I'm an expert? Maybe I'm just saying. What I'm trying to say is that I'm good at that. And I would say there are different ways to do this. Personally, I have like I do have like 3 to 4 interviews, 2 to 3, 4 interviews every week from different organizations, from different companies. People reaching out to me to say, "Hi, Christian, I would like to interview you for so and so role and all that." So, like minimum of 2 every week. So, there is let me not say it's simple, but one thing first is when it comes to that, I would like to say, because most hiring managers, what they are looking at for is, do you have a great portfolio, can you do the job? So once you have something to show for that you can do this job, that's the first thing. First, can you do this job? It's not about reaching out to them, it's not about them getting back to you, it's about you being able to do the job. Then secondly, um you have to position yourself. There are a lot of platforms that can gives you access to reach out to hiring managers. For instance, LinkedIn is doing a great job. There are job sites like Angel List, Y Combinators, um, even Twitter, uh, a whole lot of them. There are a whole lot of job sites. Behance too, Dribble. So this platform. So I'll just give a quick summary and a hack. Maybe that should be my parting gift. Uh, Behance is one of the places I've gotten most of my jobs. Behance. Okay, Behance have a career portal or a career path or a job path that you just click there, click on that jobs. You see a whole lot of jobs. You can be able to filter UI UX design jobs. You see a whole lot of jobs for UI UX designers. So what I do, and this have been working for me, is when I go under those when I go under the list of jobs, when I click them, you'll be seeing, okay, so job was posted 2 hours ago, so job was posted 2 days ago, so job was posted 7 days ago. So what I do is that I don't even bother myself applying for any job that is above beyond 2 days or 3 days. I apply for jobs that are still in, maybe posted within hours, 2 hours, 7 hours, 5 hours, and all that. Anyone that is up to a day, I don't apply. My reason being that maybe the number of persons that have applied are getting to hundreds. Like for instance, uh one recruiter reached out to me a few days ago, and he was saying, I remember I said I'm a freelancer, so I get to talk to a whole lot of persons. So reached out to me, I was saying that he got 100 applications on Behance within few hours, that it was so overwhelming that he didn't expect that. So that's to show in few hours. So that's to tell you that any job that is clocking a day, 2 days already, that's meant is the number of people that are applying should be clocking to 200, 300 or so. So that's why I always apply for jobs within hours. So what do I do? Those jobs, you will always see the persons that posted the job, the company. So you just go through it. Then under the person that posted the job, you click on the person's name. It will take you to the person's Behance profile. Then you have an option to message the person on Behance. You see that's when you click that. Then you type in your cover letter or anything, any write-up you would want to structure to reach out to this person. Sorry, I'm taking much time on this, but I just want to make sure that I answer this question very well. So you reach out to the person with your cover letter. Hi, you put the person's name. I saw your posting for so role, and I feel I'm a best fit for this role, and I have so experience doing this. I have 2 years. I have 1 year. If you don't have plenty experience, there is no need of putting it. Just tell them you have great experience. You can do this and all that and all that. Just make your cover letter compelling, then put your name, then ask them that you would like to hear from them and all that, then you submit. So most of them will end up reaching out to you to say, hi, I saw your, okay, immediately you submit that, they will get a mail that comes in form of a mail, and most of them will come back. They will, first of all, go and check your profile and see if you have a good proof portfolio. Then they they will reach out to you. So that was why I was saying, can you do this? It's not just all about them reaching out to you. Then LinkedIn too. I think similar thing can happen on LinkedIn. People post job. You can reach out to hiring managers and organizations. Then another job site I make use of is Angel List. One of the projects I'll start working on currently is I got that on Angel List a few days ago. So Angel List do the same thing. Is majorly for startups. So they post jobs. You can just reach out to them and type in your cover letter, create a profile there, get a cover letter, and keep on reaching out to people. And uh, it's not everybody that will reach out to you anyways, but you all need a yes, like you keep hearing. 1 year is what really matters during the job search. So I don't know if I've answered this question very well.
Yes, you have. You have done a lot of justice to the question. Thank you so much. So, okay, the next question is here is when do we use qualitative research and quantitative research?
Okay, so you actually, there is no time to use one or the other, but okay, maybe it is always good to do both. Why do I say so? I don't encourage you to do one or the other, except okay, maybe quantitative research, like I said, has to do with numbers. It gives you figures. Okay. Like the instance I give, when you are asking people how do they do their shopping, how do they do their buying of gadgets, you're asking them, that's an open-ended question. Or you're asking how do you buy your gadgets, online or offline, online or via store or via shops, or however way you want to put it. So quantitative research gives you a figure, okay, maybe telling you that 80% of persons from your pool are saying they do theirs via online, or they prefer to do that via online. Okay, so those figure does not really answer the before you have to decide make any design, you have to answer the question why. Because if you don't know the reason why they are doing what they are doing, you might end up designing a wrong product, a wrong thing for them. So to answer the why, you have to ask more questions, and that's where qualitative comes in. You want to know why they are doing, how do you carry out this, why do you prefer buying gadgets online, why do you prefer shopping online, why do you prefer doing it via stores. So this gives you the real reason why they're doing it. Then another aspect is maybe if it's a product you're already working on, you might not really need quantitative analysis by then because you already have a project at hand. So you are just trying to answer only the question why. You want to know their thoughts, you want to know their preferences, you want to know if they prefer paying with crypto, you want to know if they prefer paying with their cash, you want to know if they prefer using their ATM cards as their credit card to or debit card to make payments and all that. So these are some of the things you need to consider. So at the stage you are actually determine what you ought to do. Okay, so if it is a fresh project, a fresh that's from the scratch, ground up, you have to do the both. But if it's something that you're already working on, okay, most times it's qualitative that really you really need at the moment because you already have something you are working on. Except need be you want to figure out, okay, maybe how many users likes this button being placed so place, or the color and all that, or the look and all that, so you can do your quantitative analysis. So I don't know if I've answered that question.
Okay, if you have any more questions, please they will drop it. But I think that answers that. So this question is saying, if you're asked to describe your research system or pattern, how do you explain that?
Okay, I think that should be my, is that the last question? Hi. Hi,
Okay,
mom.
hello, sorry. You have just after that, just one more question and we're done for the night.
Okay, just ask the last question because that the question you asked now, I wanted to answer that while I summarize.
Okay, all right. So the last question says, what are the minimum number of persons to interview for a project?
Okay, there's no specific amounts. There's no specific amounts to interview. You just reach out to the number of persons as much as the more you gather data, the more it impacts your decision. Just imagine you want to build something for all Nigerians, everybody in Nigeria. Maybe you want everybody in Nigeria to start using a crypto app, for instance, to make payments online, and you end up interviewing the only people in Lagos State and Rivers State. You see, you are limited because you might make this everybody likes crypto. At the end of the day, you come to discover that people in the far north and in some certain part of the country they don't even know what is crypto. They don't even like it. They prefer using their money to go and buy stuffs. So the more the better. That's all I have to say. The more the better. Okay, I think that's the last. Hello.
Okay, I can hear you.
Yeah. Any other question before I summarize?
Okay, so please, if you're on this call and you have any question, please just kindly drop on the chat. Okay, I don't know if you've answered this one. I think you have. What are the minimum number of persons to interview for a project? I think you've answered that already. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think I've answered that. I say the more the better. But
Okay.
minimum, there shouldn't be a minimum. Just the more the better. That is a better way to go about it.
Okay, guys. So if there's any more question, please drop it on the chat. Please drop it on the chat. Yeah. Okay, I think Mr. Amaka is back. So, guys, please, if you have any question, please just kindly drop it on the chat before Christian rounds up the class. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I'm back. So guys, just ask your question. You're already taking 17 minutes into his time, so please ask your question so that he will round up. So Christian, you can go ahead and summarize and round up.
All right. So someone was asking my research pattern or how I go about my own research. So I would like to say, when it comes to US research, in fact, when it comes to UI UX design as a whole, uh, it is very good. It is very important. You understand both concepts. Okay, you are good at UI, you are good at UX. Okay, even if you are not good at both, it's very good you know both. Okay, the reason being that as someone that is starting out, most organizations, when I mean most organizations, especially startups, okay, most startups, most small organizations, small to mid organizations always like someone that have a very good knowledge of these both sides of UI. I'm sure most people must have come across people that say, I'm a US researcher, okay, or I'm a US designer. Some people say that, some people say I'm a US writer, some people say I'm a UI designer and all that. So, but except you want to work in big organizations, it's only in big organizations that you will see people being hired for only research or for only US writing. It's only big organizations that do that most at times. So except you're targeting big organizations, then you can just specialize and do okay. All your work is US researching. Okay, that's all your job. Then when you are done gathering your reports, you can then do a quick wireframe or a quick sketch and hand over to the UI guys, and they will do the high fidelity prototype and all that. So my own personal from experience, I've come to discover that most most organizations does not really most times, like I said, I think I made this comment earlier on, US research is time consuming and expensive sometimes. Okay, because you want to build a product. Sometimes it might take like a whole lot of time to gather this information we are talking about. It's not a 1 day something. Okay, it's not a 1 day to interview. Like I was saying, the more the better. You cannot take 1 day and interview 100 persons or 200 persons, depending. I'm not saying you interview 200 persons. So, uh, but I'm just giving a scenario, creating a picture. So it takes time to gather this data. So when you must have even gathered the data, it takes time to analyze them and interpret them and come up with something tangible. So what do you do? So most organizations do is that they don't even bother. They have a quicker way of doing it. Okay. For instance, you want to build an e-commerce platform like the example I've given since we started this class. Uh, a very quick way of doing it, instead of gathering users, asking questions, doing online polls and all that, you can quickly go to Google the already existing e-commerce platforms. And when you open some of these platforms, you can be able to make quick decisions. Okay, this is the way they are doing it. This is the way they are doing it. This is the way they are doing it, and it's selling. You can go to Play Store and read some of the reviews that people are making on these mobile apps, and from those reviews, you can see where they are lagging, where they are not getting it right. Okay, and you can quickly that will help you to fast track what you are doing. So you might not really most times I'm sure if you are conversant with this space, you must have had stuff like Orga Center design. Most organizations don't really care about what they care about research. What they care is about results. They don't want to see wireframes. They don't do anything with wireframes. They don't care if your write-ups, you gather the whole lot of write-ups